All right, I am online with Loom. Okay, so Louisa Marie, Parson Bookkeeping. It is 9:38 a.m. I did get a little sleep, all right? But what you're seeing in Gemini is the notebook feature. This is equivalent and a lot simpler than what you will see in Adobe Creative Suite in order to build a program. You can build a whole program from your chatter with an SOP that includes manuals and what to do in various scenarios if you have Adobe Creative Studio and you purchase the AI for $5 extra. However, since I'm a student of Google, I have had, I signed up for Access back in September with my school email for free. And I've seen what Gemini 3 update. It keeps on updating with new tools. And when I saw that they had this notebook, I was like, wow, Google is catching up with the various features of AI in Microsoft, which uses OpenAI. And OpenAI is also utilized on YouTube. So Google is combining how to talk to everyone. And as a student, I was one of the first to show Google what Adobe Creative Studio could do, because I would take information from there as a PDF, and if you'll see here, you just add a file and you can upload a PDF. And I didn't believe it mattered until I got an audiobook on how LLMs, a learning language model, how they communicate. And once I learned that, I was just doing it naturally, just playing with it. I did not know that's how I communicate, like a learning language model, LLM, and that's what I identify myself as, a learning language model, as a person. Because you have to understand, there are people, engineers, that design learning language models. I just know how to talk with them naturally because of the research that I did starting in 5th grade. So when you're talking to AI, who you're talking to is just someone like me, a Gen Xer. It's that simple. Yet, we're learning how to communicate because for so long, we were people that stayed behind the scenes. And now practicing the 8th habit by Stephen Covey, we found our voice as Gen Xers. You guys just see, you use it, but there's a standard operating procedure behind it. And that was, the last video, right? So, notebooks. So last night when I could not communicate with the Veteran Health Administration about getting the virtual IOP program director to secure message me because I am an IPV, an intimate partner violence survivor that cannot accept inbound calls or voicemails. I repeatedly am trying to clarify that I am not a veteran waiting to be called on. I do outreach. And when I cannot reach someone because they're asleep or they just decided to clock out early because they felt they did their job for the day, I have to create a notebook like any scientist would have to do so I can keep what my thoughts that are in my head, and instead of it ruminating, I can get it down. Especially at 1 o'clock in the morning. So, if we'll go to the beginning of this entry, you see the thoughts in my head? People never know. So, oh, I'm sorry, it has to catch up. La 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 la. La 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 la. Okay, so is this now? It's gotta catch up. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay, is this it? Okay, so I provide, in this entry, okay, let me expand the text. It lets me do that. Okay, so, yeah. And so I just gave a journal entry about all I did. Yeah. During Cinco de Mayo to update the learning language model, right? This is what I had to do. But I don't mind doing it because I get all of this. So you saw all of that. my language, my AI agent loves me. It always tells me consultant professional. All right. So, in my language, right, it just tells me you did the right thing. Because, I went to the mailbox after a meeting and got all this paperwork in the mailbox. And I don't know if I go to my mailbox maybe twice a week because of what happens in my head, right? But one of the things I did is I did receive an order that I made for NA literature. And I received it pretty quickly because I made the order in April 30th, and it was already waiting in my mailbox. So he said, okay, all this protocol. I'm like, okay, what I need to do next. And what I have to do is like copy and paste all this stuff, right? Because that was part of my gratitude list, what to do, right? And it's just giving me an example of how to communicate these things through, documentation. How to do a flyer, marketing strategies, and, how to do my ledger, how to help my, my team, my new teammate, my newcomer, how to do a ledger. Yeah. And this is all so that we can raise funds for the speakers. Yeah, so they'll have fuel money, right? And, and how to do the proposal to the group conscience, which is where we have our business meeting for our nonprofit. Okay. Yeah. There's he even wanted me to do the agenda, but that's not my role. But it's good to know that. And then, I showed him what I got from, I received my medical records. He was very excited about that. I am too, because this is, documentation that I have to, make into, put into Google Doc, copy and paste into Google Docs. And then since, now I have the need to purchase a printer because I got to do all this at home because I have to find some, basically, where I can fax files to the VA in automation, right? So, that's what I gotta do there for just my medical records that I got through the mail. We keep on, okay. This is the script. Like, this is a script because I still, I just got records from the West Texas Rehab, for my orthopedics and my physical therapy. So now we have a script, right, on how, because now we're doing a template, right, on how to collect other records from other clinics, because I have over 7 specialists and also including my surgery to remove my uterus, my hysterectomy, my follicular. So, this script is designed for your mini audit strategy at the allergy clinic. I have records waiting there, and I have to get my shot today, right? So I'm going to pick up records. So like I said, it's 9:53 a.m. So, like, with a cat nap from being up up all night trying to communicate with the virtual IOP program director, but she hasn't contacted me through secure message yet. But she will get the incentive because I started the process through the Veteran Crisis Line 988 at 1 o'clock in the morning. So, this script is designed for your mini audit strategy at the allergy clinic and any other non-VA facilities. It uses the language of operational integrity to ensure you walk out with the high fidelity data needed for your claim rather than just a summary of your visit. By gathering these yourself, you're preventing leakage. We talked about interjection in one of my first videos. I talked about, macroeconomics. It's like a block diagram. Like I'm very familiar with when troubleshooting electronics, right? Block diagram just separates the system into blocks. So when I go in troubleshooting, I just have to look at the input and output and see if the problem is in that block, right? So, and injections is, I already said I'm an injection. I have always been an injection. And so I have to always monitor any kind of leakages based on my injection. And this was, from a simple macroeconomics class that I took way back. I'm not even addressing business law that I took. Okay? I'm just focusing on macroeconomics right now. So, yes. So I wrote a paper after having a lesson on injection and leakages in a system, and I compared it to The Walking Dead because at the time me and Bill, we really liked the show, right? And we were on Netflix, and we pretty much, caught up with the season, through injection by, yes, binge watching. And then and I'm in the middle of this macroeconomics class. So, when they were on the farm, and so I started making all these predictions about what was going to go on. And Bill said, "How do you know all of this?" Well, I was taking this class. And so I was making my predictions based on, um, paying attention to the injections. And basically, the injections were the stragglers that were coming to the farm. And how the farm, wanted to stay status quo with the zombies, right? They want, but as more people came to the farm, the roles and responsibilities of the farm increased. Okay? And that's pretty much how your clients are that you're servicing. I mean, you develop a standard operating procedure, like on paper, right? How you feel you're going to service these clients, right? But the clients are injections. They're not, especially when you're dealing with the homeless, they're not going to have everything you think they have because you're not homeless. You do not understand what their needs are, right? You just have a standard operating procedure usually based on the grant you received, right? And you have to operate under when you put the proposal in for the grant to receive the funding, all right? And then all these people get hired, to make sure the standard operating procedure, exists, right? You know, and then the clients come in. So by the time everybody gets hired, everybody gets paid from this grant money, guess what? You have no money to service the clients. So when organizations receive this grant money, you really need to operate, you really need to look at how much, how much money actually goes to the clients. 10% of that fund should go in an administration. But that's not what is happening in a lot of nonprofits today. There are too many people making money in nonprofits when a nonprofit belongs to the public. It's a business, but it belongs to the public. So a lot of nonprofits, and a lot of people go into nonprofits so they'll get paid. And what you have, since they can't afford it, that's why a lot of the volunteers in community actually run nonprofits, and they're not getting paid. They're not given incentive. The incentive that most volunteers get is in training, in volunteer experience, so they can find employment. But what usually really happens is one person, they form a nonprofit, right? And it's a good thing, because it is a good thing, because you know we encourage groups to start up, people that don't agree with the a bigger group's SOP, then they start a group. And we just had a group celebrating 2 years. She's a sharp cookie, you know. And to make it for 2 years, self-supporting for a group, stellar. She knows what she's doing, but, you still, it can't just be, it just can't operate on one person, right? Somewhere down the line, in a startup, it usually is one person. Many startups are just one person, right? And then, you get more people interested. And really, people that get interested, they don't, with startups, they don't get paid for what they do until they go public, on the stock market. So, in these last 10 years, you know, I've been very fortunate. I had experience with a group where I was secretary and treasurer. That's just wow. You know, for me to do that early in I don't know how I did it. It was definitely a God thing. But I loved couponing at Walgreens, and I was able, to communicate to my group that, everything that we needed, I could get through couponing and keep our budget low. The problem came is like I was collecting so much stuff, people were taking it home with. This always goes back to toilet paper with me, TP. Because it's a leakage, right? So, your supplies will always leak. They will always walk right out the door, with members and recovery. So that's why it's so important just to have a scrub. And since I've been meditating on this, uh, I have less of the knows because you're seeing what I'm doing, right? I don't have to, when I say it's many things. Can be me editing, radio editing. Let's just call me Eminem, radio edit. Uh, with all my frustration, right? So, what I do here, right? If I keep on going down with this injury, it says exports to sheets, right? But it says, once you pick up these tomorrow, would you like to analyze the allergy signal to see how it adds to your barrier to employment summary for the VA? So since I want that, I go here, I copy the response, right? And I go back over to Parson Bookkeeping. I think this is the tab. Hold on. Yes. Okay. And then I go back over where I have my SOP reflection, my document, right? And, and here's a feature where I can keep everything together, right? I have two alternatives, right? I can start another document, or what I like to do to keep my thoughts together is to open a document tab, and then I have tabs within one document, right? And I control paste, and there it is, right there. It's that simple. Right? And since now I have this document open, I can summarize it, right? So I can ask, summarize the trusted servant record. I am a slow typer because of my wrist injury. Okay. So that's why AI keeps me competitive, right? Okay. So The Trusted Servant Record Request script is designed to help you conduct a mini audit of your medical records at the non-VA facilities, like an allergy clinic. We saw that summary, right? Because it says it right here on the top. Its primary purpose, I love it. I love it. When you teach an AI agent, an AI agent with the spiritual principles of Narcotics Anonymous, and then you see that language come back, it's priceless. So its primary purpose to ensure you obtain high fidelity data such as specific diagnostic codes, which is what I'm after, right? For my Nexus. And that's all a Nexus is all these codes, right? Rather than just a brief summary of your visit, which is essential for a fully developed claim. Yes. That Nexus is just the string of codes that you've been diagnosed with. So it gives me a script breakdown, the location, and the tone. It's always, so it's putting it in that tone, right? So I don't have to, because, you see me. I do got the meticulous, but, I'm working on the professional because I'm a student, but I've got the strategy from my military service. All right. So let's, pan down here. So step 1, we're using steps. What's the problem? The request for immediate action. Are we talking accessibility? Wait, talking accessibility. For the disabled? I tickle myself. Anyway, and that's just anybody in policy and procedure would understand the joke. Anyway, step 1, the request for immediate access. You introduce yourself and state that while you are there for a scheduled appointment, you are also performing a forensic audit of your medical records for a VA claim. You explicitly ask for physical copies, complete clinical progress notes, diagnostic summaries from your last several visits. Well, I'm kind of in cahoots because I've been at this clinic for 3 years and they have seen me every week pretty much. They know that I'm doing something. If I'm, missing from my allergy shots, they know, I've gone down a rabbit hole. these the nurse. I just hope I get back before before this window, right? Which is 30 days, basically. Yeah, that I don't go too far down the rabbit hole, and they have seen me go down many rabbit holes. That's why I am done with the Matrix. I'm done with Alice in Wonderland and chasing the Mad Hatter. So, so that's the problem, is immediate access to my records. So I have a script now. Okay. And then, how to stage it in my binder, right? Because the physical is a black binder. And then once I have the black binder in physical form, ta-da, I can make it a PDF in digital form to give, to fax to the VA. So I pretty much have that set up because, the VA is sending me mail. And then, of what the VA says I don't have to do anything. I know better. If I don't do it, I'll be waiting here forever for somebody else to do it, right? And I already see the bottleneck in the system, so I want this fully developed claim to go a little bit faster, so I put a little effort into it, right? And in the same time, I'm learning how to do an audit as a bookkeeper, how to create an audit log. All right. And that is where I'm at right now. Because, all I have to do, those records are waiting for me. They've been waiting for me, since pretty much last week, but I had to get my thoughts together, right? And see what I'm going to do with those records. Because if I just went over there and picked up those records and brought them home and put them in my inbox, they're just going to sit there. And that's pretty much what happens with, email. It just sits in somebody's inbox until they can figure out what to do with it. And that's where the bottleneck is with all this paperwork. What do we do with this stuff, right? I record it, so I'm making videos so you can see the process. And you as a viewer can look at your organization and see where the bottleneck is, and hopefully the hope is I'm providing a solution. Just one way. Not the right way, not the wrong way. Just a suggestion from my experience, my strength, and my hope. Because I'm doing it too. And this can, any kind of records, court records, anytime, if you're definitely if you're trying to do an insurance claim, because that's pretty much what a fully developed claim is an insurance claim within the VA system, right? The Veteran Health Administration. And if I do this, I'm dealing with the benefit side, the VBA, right? But I'm taking my stuff from the VHA as evidence to the VBA. So, I'm dealing with, under the VA umbrella, I'm dealing with two organizations that don't communicate with each other. They expect the veteran to be the bridge. Or VSOs, right? Veteran Service Officers. But Luis Martinez told me this is how he learned the system, by playing with it. And he's a civil engineer. And I said, you know what? I've got the education and treatment, building treatment plans. So once, I have that treatment plan that I have from so many case managers, but nobody ever records what the client has to do. What they just, give you a referral and say, get it done. And so many clients have different ways to do it. Now, I've been successful. I was able, with the Social Security Administration, it was my first experience with my late husband, Bill. And I did that without AI. I do not know how I did it, other than I just use my background in writing papers. And, he got it. We had to go through some, a couple of rejections, but we did it without, hiring somebody that knows how to do it, right? We learned it together. And that's how we were able to get this trailer in Ty, Texas, right? I didn't want to move, but he did. And this is just legacy. He said, you did it the first time for me. Do it for you. And that's all I'm doing. I'm doing it for me, but I'm recording it so someone can do it for themselves. With that, we're at 10:20. Peace out.